Welcome back to the podcast with your host, Samantha.
And I'm Alexa, and we're here to light up your life.
Today, we're joined by Mikey C-Roc. He's a performance expert, investor, and founder of That1 Agency. He's on a mission to help people remove limits, amplify their voice, and become unstoppable.
We're so excited to have you, Mikey. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, ladies. It's been a long time coming, I think. So
Yeah,
I'm
it
glad to be
has.
here.
We've been talking about this for a while now.
Yeah, it's finally happening. So we're so excited. All right, well, jumping in. So much of who you become as a leader and a visionary is rooted in early childhood experiences. How did your childhood shape who you are and what you do today?
Great question. Well, in the early years, I'm talking early adult years, I let it affect me more than it does today. I learned along the journey that your past doesn't really define who you are now. It doesn't have to. And consciousness increasing takes that away. When you start to realize that you have the control to cause and create your future, you don't let that affect you. But early on, it did have an impact in positive and negative ways. So I came from a lot of brokenness, drug addicts, alcoholism, mental health issues, suicide, you name it. And I was around it a lot as a kid. And I was very observant as a kid. And I started paying attention to these things. And I would call my family members out sometimes, and because they would always say, Mikey, the reason I'm like this is because my parents were alcoholics or this and that. They would always create this story, and then they would live out their future based on that story. And I noticed that as a kid. And so I started to realize, wait a minute, you realize you're telling me why you're like this, but if you just change that story, you could live differently. And they didn't like to hear that, by the way, because they didn't want to take responsibility over their life going forward. They wanted to put that responsibility on some other thing or person or people, and that shaped their life. So for me, I started to realize as I got older, started to be mentored and go through life, I started to realize that, wait a minute, all I got to do is start changing the way I think and become a different person. I can create my own identity. And then your identity changes the probabilities of what happens going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that we can both relate to your story. I mean, I grew up in a really toxic childhood, lots of mental, physical, and emotional abuse. So I understand where you're coming from. And you're right. So many times people just don't have the strength and the power to actually change their identity and become a new person. And they're just living in their past, which is so unfortunate. But was there a specific struggle or maybe a pivotal moment growing up that just lit a fire inside of you to know that you're meant for more?
Yeah, I think there's several moments, and I think that the people around me were telling me things and trying to influence the way I was. And I picked up on that early. Like I had a stepmother that I didn't necessarily get along with, and she used to use the word pathetic a lot. Like, oh, that's pathetic. You're pathetic. And I didn't even know what that was, but the way she said it, I could tell it wasn't positive, right? And I was always thinking about that. Like, what does that mean? And am I? So I think it's important to ask the question when people are around you. Your environment shapes you so much. So it's why it's so important to be hypersensitive of who you surround yourself with. But I'd always ask the question, am I? There's a powerful statement, I am, right? And I am whatever really shapes who you are going forward. And so I would always ask that question myself, like, am I? Am I? And then I would be able to answer that question. It gave me the power to answer that question. So yeah, I mean, I've had several moments. I mean, there was a time where my dad, I was living with my mom for till I was 8 years old. I don't remember my parents ever together. My dad was moving on to his second marriage, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to start something fresh. 8 years old, thinking like this. So I told my mom I wanted to move in with my dad, and I broke her heart. She let me go, and I moved in with my dad and his new wife. And very quickly, I realized there was a lot of chaos and conflict in this relationship. My stepmom didn't like my dad's side of the family. They had issues. She wouldn't, that in turn kept us from seeing a lot of my dad's side of the family, which I knew wasn't right. And there was a lot of drama in the house, right? And I just, eventually said, this isn't normal. And so I told my mom, I said, I need to get out of here. And she filed court papers, and I didn't tell my dad about this or anything. So I would go to school and then come home every day waiting for these things to be delivered for the bomb to drop. And one day it did. I came home. I could feel the tension in the room. And my dad had these papers in his hand. He said, hey, go back to your room. So I sat in my room waiting for my dad. Now, my dad was my hero. He had a masonry business, very successful. He had big forearms and rough hands. You could tell he was a hard worker. And I always looked up to my dad for that. And he used to flash this money at us all the time. Us Italians, we carry wads of money instead of wallets. And he used to show me $100 bills all the time and show me that hard work got him this, and this is what you could do with it, and save your money and all this other stuff. And so I always looked up to him for that. Well, he came back to my room after I was sitting there for a while, and he said, "Hey, what does this say here? It says you want to move back with your mom. I can understand this because you have everything you need here." Now, I didn't have everything I need because there was no love in the house. But he said, "You have everything you need here, and you want to go back to your mom where she has men coming in and out of the house, living paycheck to paycheck. That's what you want?" And I said, "Look, I don't want to really discuss this. I've made up my mind." And he said, "Okay." So he takes that wad of $100 bills out that he carried around, and he peeled one off and crumpled it up and he threw it at me. He said, "Here, you're going to need this then when you're living on the streets with your mother one day." And I was at 10 years old at that time. And the first thought that went through my mind was, what did I just do? What did I just cause? And then very quickly, the stubbornness kicked in. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to need that money. And that moment for 30 some years was driving me that I would never need that money. I'm going to do everything I can to be successful and beyond to make sure I wouldn't have to rely on him for anything. And that's an energy that works. Okay. But it's very toxic. It's like a low octane fuel for an engine that's not very refined. And then as I got older and went through business life and experiences and relationships and started to be mentored and hanging around different people, I started to realize that my engine was refining. It was going from like a, I don't know, like a old Hyundai cheap car, or Kia, to a Ferrari engine or even a rocket ship. And that needs different fuel. And the new fuel is based in the identity that you create on your own, taking agency over your own identity, and also putting things out in the future that you want to accomplish in visions and goals and missions. And once you do that, that fuel is totally different. It's cleaner, burns cleaner, but it's more powerful and it pushes you further faster.
Wow, that's a powerful story. And I definitely would like to know a little bit more on how you were able to transform that energy. So that negative mindset, um, and fuel it into something positive.
Well, it came from observation, right? I think we all failed a lot of times to observe what's going on. We get in these automatic modes. Our body works a certain way to put things on autopilot in a way so we don't have to think about so many things. And some of us fail to get out of that. So I've always been an observant person. So I would observe other people. I would observe how they're living their lives and how they're accomplishing things. And then I would reflect back on my life and say, okay, where did I fail based on these new lessons I've learned? And where did I succeed? And then I was able to, in retrospect, to look back and create a protocol of how to live my life based on that. And the kind of guy that's not very patient. I've become more patient as I've gotten older. So I always wanted things now. Like, well, we got to, okay, I understand it now. Let's go. There's no reason that it should take this long. But then I started to realize that, there's a process with everything. There's seasons for things. And you have to, in life, you have to put things in motion and be urgent with your actions, but patient with the process.
I definitely agree with that. As you reflect back on your childhood and where you are now, do you think that what you went through helped to shape you, and every moment that you experienced and every challenge and every breakthrough was just leading you up to where you are today? Because I know a lot of people look back and they want to forget their past. But for me personally, I look back and know that it completely shaped the woman that I am today. So I'm curious to know your perspective.
Yeah, I think for sure. But there's a thing that happens in human beings where events have emotions and energy. Emotions are energy, emotion, right? There's an energy that attaches to those memories, and that is like a charge on that memory, and so that affects your subconscious mind, how you react to things, if you react to things. And so what happens is if you don't deal with those charges, that emotion that's tied to the memory, it will continue to affect your life subconsciously, and you'll react to things. You'll quickly act on something, react to something, and then when it's over, you'll be like, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why did I punch that guy? Why did I lose my crap on somebody? You know, uh, why was I short with my kids? And you start to realize now, if you don't know this, you'll continue your life this way, and it'll continue to destroy your life. I realized and learned that if I can go back to those memories and revisit them over and over and over again on purpose with intention, that charge will break up. See, I study quantum physics and quantum resonance and quantum mechanics, and you start to understand that when you have issues like that, that energy gets condensed into almost solid. And you can tell this by the feeling that you get from it when you have a memory of something that's traumatic or something. It feels dark and heavy, gets sick in your stomach, your heart drops, and that is that energy that's there. But when you go back and visit it intentionally, and you could start to break it up, and the energy actually starts. This is a physical process. The energy starts to loosen up and break up and free up, and that this is you'll get a euphoric feeling when you go through this. And people have heard of the term walking on cloud nine, right? When you have this euphoric feeling, you feel like, wow, I feel lighter. Everything seems brighter. My perceptions are clearer. My senses opened up. I can smell things again that I hadn't smelled before. When I went through this process, I went back to the boardwalk here in Ocean City, Maryland. I walk and jog the boardwalk often. And right after when I went through one of these processes, I went to the boardwalk and I could smell the wood on the boardwalk again. And I hadn't smelled that in a long time. And it brought back the feelings that I had as a kid when I used to go to the beach on vacations with my family. And it reminded me of that, that boardwalk wood smell. It reminded me of being a kid again. And it's just like, wow, I can smell this again. It's just crazy. I didn't even realize I wasn't smelling this. So that's how it works.
Yeah, and I think that so many people heal through talking about their stories, right? A lot of people get on stages and kind of what Samantha just mentioned as well, really have that be a pivotal moment for them. And then by talking about it or by trying to um, guide other people through similar scenarios, it almost is like a healing moment for them as well. So, do you feel like telling your story has helped you heal?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a way to go back and visit it, right? And break up that energy. Some people do it through ayahuasca and psilocybin, uh, other things. I don't believe you need that. That might be a quicker way to it, but there's also a danger side to that. I think if you put in the work, you can do it yourself without that stuff. And for sure, sharing it over. I mean, I've been on over 1,200 podcasts as a guest in the last 5 years. Since Sam has met me, yeah, it's been probably over 1,000, and sharing these different things. And then the live stages that opened up from that, the conversations. I do these things called 15 minis, where back in the day, during the pandemic when we were all locked down, if you can just imagine a guy like me that loves people, loves networking, loves connecting people, being stuck in a lockdown like we all were. I just wasn't having it. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start doing speed networking calls. I'm going to call them 15 minis. I created the URL 15mini.com, and that went right to my calendar for 15-minute calls. And I would have calls with friends of friends or perfect strangers that I would meet at events or online. If I'm on Instagram, I'm on there intentionally scrolling, looking for the right people that I would want to hang out with. And I don't even think twice. I just DM them right away. Hey, let's hop on a call. I want to connect and explore synergy. I have a great show. We can have you on, whatever, whatever. And they would book the call. It got so popular that I was doing 5 to 8 a day, Monday through Friday. And it worked so well. That's a lot of time invested. So I had to decide, do I want to continue this when things open back up? I couldn't say no because a lot of connections, collaborations, massive network expansion came from it. We did a lot of podcasting from it. We've raised over $15 million from those calls for people's causes and businesses. It's allowed me to create this amazing network called That1 Network that we have a WhatsApp chat. We meet up in person. Over 300 people are part of that. But more importantly than anything, it allowed me to share my story over and over again to impact others, but also free up that energy for me.
Yeah, I love that. We talk about this all the time that, you're most qualified to serve the person you once were. So all of those experiences you went through is now helping other people and giving them the tools to help them heal, which is amazing. We know that you wrote a book called Rocket Fuel and you talk a lot about momentum. So how do you personally create momentum, and then how can someone that's stuck in doubt or fear start building it in their own life?
Well, it all yeah. Here's the book. Yeah, it's for
Yep.
everybody if it's watching. Go get the book. Momentum comes from taking action, and no matter what happens, whether you succeed or not, I believe you succeed even if it doesn't work out the way you want it. I have a great relationship with God. I pray every day, and I just know that everything's working out for me. Everything always works out for me. So it doesn't matter if it doesn't work out the way I thought it should or the way I wanted. I want to serve God, and that's who I'm looking to please. And He's got a plan way beyond whatever anything I could even imagine. So why would I limit myself to what I think it should happen or what I want, the way I want it to be. I want to surrender to that infinite possibility that God has for me. And so for me, momentum comes from taking action. Okay. Not the result, the actions. Because some things will work out. They all work out. And that builds confidence. And anytime I'm, feeling a little sense of fear, doubt, uncertainty, I take action. I reach out to someone. I look to give and serve, and it changes everything. When you are in that mode, anytime of hopelessness or whatever, the key is to keep going. When you're in the midst of an adversity, the light at the end of the tunnel is not there. And so, we see people like end their lives because of this, because they don't understand that if you just got to keep going, it always gets brighter. It always does. It's a fact. And until you're plucked from this planet, not by your own taking, but something help whenever you're supposed to go, if you keep going, it always breaks up. It always gets lighter.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That just this common belief that the universe is working for you, not against you. I think that is great advice, Mikey. And I know that you've become a master at storytelling through the thousands of podcasts that you've been on. So, why do you think storytelling is so powerful at building influence and making connections?
Well, it's the difference between speaking at people and with people. So
Mm.
when you're just sharing information, people, it's talking at them and preaching to them. For me, I don't like that. I don't like when people preach at me, but I love a good story and I can relate to the story. You're tapping into people's experiences and
Hmm.
then creating relatability so that they can envision and imagine what you're talking about. And then you wrap your point in the story. A friend of ours, Greg Reed, always told me, dude, every point has to have a story and every story has to have a point. Because when I first started speaking, sometimes I would just preach to people, or I would tell a story that didn't have a point, or it wasn't really. I thought it did, but it didn't. It wasn't very apparent. So very important to just share experiences, man. Some people think to themselves like, I'm not a good storyteller. Well, first of all, you shouldn't say that because you're going to experience everything that's going to validate that you're not a good storyteller. But you just got to start telling stories, even if it's bad. Just start. Just start moving, and then eventually it gets better. And that's why I did so many podcasts, is because I knew, one, that I would have definitely better communication skills, better storytelling abilities. But there's also massive network expansion that happens when you do podcasts, because the hosts are some of the most connected people on the planet. And if you can add them into your network, it just expands out drastically.
Yeah, that's such a great point, and that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, right? To be able to communicate our story in such a more powerful way and to be able to connect with people. So, we really want to know what inspired you to launch That1 Agency, and then what do you think makes it stand out as the number one booking firm in North America, which is crazy.
Well, I'll start with that second question. The reason it stands out and became the number one podcast booking firm in North America is because I, as a founder, have done what I do for my clients, and I'm still doing it. I got on so many podcasts. I had my own podcast. I built an amazing network, and I'm still doing it to this day. There's nobody in this industry who's done what I've done. So it's impossible to compete with us. And I know how to serve people. I know how to find people and build relationships with them by serving and building up a currency so that they feel like obligated to champion me and trust me. And so when people come to us, I basically just took the team that got me on all these podcasts and scaled it out to serve other people so we can take our team and just plug it into other people's businesses. The first part of the question is, we started out as People Building Inc., which is my main company, People Building Podcast Agency, but then that didn't hit me good enough. And I said, what is the thing that makes people successful in business? One of the main things, and that's attention. And how do you get attention? Because remember, we learned this: if nobody knows who you are, you're not gonna be able to serve anybody because they don't know you. They don't know what you do. But then, how do you do that, right? And I remember Grant Cardone telling me one time, he's like, "Dude, you got to get known globally, man." And I'm like, I don't know about that. He's like, "No, you're thinking ego. I'm not talking about ego. I'm talking about for impact and causing an attraction model. You see, most people are in chase mode, and you're in chase mode, and you can't be fulfilled when you're in chase mode. It's a transactional experience. You're always looking for the next thing. And when that one's over, it's nothing left in it. It's the next thing. It's the next thing you're chasing." He said, if you get known globally, you'll create an attraction model, and that'll pull the right people and opportunities to you. And you still could chase a little bit. You want to follow up with people and all that, but you're not going to be in a situation where you're only relying on you chasing. And I said, that makes sense, but I don't know how to do that. And he said, you don't need to know how. You need to commit to the degree you commit, the how will appear. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. All right, I got it. I'm all in. Let's go. What do I got to do? He said, go get on podcasts. And I said, which ones? He said, all of them. I said, all of them? He said, all of them. I said, all right, I got it. So I'm coachable. I played college football. I'm coachable. I've been sports all my life. I went and called my assistant, Kim, who's our ops manager at That1 now. And I said, Kim, I need, we got to figure out this thing. I mean, I got to get on podcasts every day. She goes, how? I said, I don't know. We just got to go. We got to commit to it and go. And then what happened, I noticed that when you set your intention, it directs your attention. Now, our attention only has so many units available to use each day. And if you don't direct your attention with your intention, it will be directed by someone's intention. And most people on this planet live off of other people's intentions. And then they live a resentful life full of anxiety, unfulfillment. And I realized this, that when I set that intention that I got to get known globally and podcasts is the way, that intention was set. My attention started paying attention to all around me, all my environment, all my network. And I realized, oh my gosh, like everybody's got a podcast that I know. And I didn't even see that before. So I just started hitting people up. Hey, let's fire it up, man. Let me get on your podcast. Let's shoot some content together. Let's light it up. And I would go on everything. I was the first guest on many shows, which put me in the eyes of that host as like a hero to them, because I said yes to them. And because I've had some business success, right, prior to this. So then I started I would go on women's shows where they were talking about menopause, perimenopause. I didn't even know what that was, but I was still going on, sharing my story, right? Lighting people up.
So funny.
And then I took the content before Reels, TikToks, and Instagram, all that stuff. I started taking the content, clipping it up, pushing it everywhere, and becoming omnipresent. And then when I would go to events, people would recognize me. They would want to take selfies with me, which I thought was weird because my kids don't even want to take pictures with me. But I was like, wow, this works. Then I found myself in the middle of stages with billionaires, celebrities, people I saw on TV, athletes, presidents. I was like, this is wild. I was in the green room in Vegas one time with RFK Jr. and Tucker Carlson.
I was there too.
Yeah, you were there. Right? I was in the green room in there, and I'm like, how did I get here? This is crazy. So I started thinking about how did this all happen? And I started to realize those that are super successful and get known are the ones that stand out. And they become that one in their space. And that one then became, to me, by the way, God is that one to me, right? There's things in my life that are that one. So I revolved it all around this idea of becoming that one in your space and finding out what your strengths are, weaknesses, insecurities, and leaning into it unapologetically. Find out who you are, what do you stand for, your values, your mission, and then go all in on it. I'm not worrying about what people think. Most people are like worried about what you ought to be. You ever heard of ought to be? I think you spell it OUGHT. But they do that off of the people around them and what they think they ought to be.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I don't want to worry about what people think I ought to be. I know what I am. I'm going to be who I am. And so I don't worry about ought to be's. I just go. And what happens is, one of the things too is powerful. Most people aren't cool with repelling the wrong people out of their lives. And it could be their family members, their mom, their parents, whatever, brothers, sisters, friends. They're worried about hurting someone's feelings or something, while those people aren't worried about hurting your feelings. They're not worried about stealing your dreams and your passions and ambitions. So I started to understand that too. Is like, hey, this thing, when you lean into it unapologetically and become that one, you're going to repel some people, and that's okay. It's not only good for you, it's actually good for them, because it's hurting them when they're holding you back. It's hurting them. So you're allowing yourself, with your decision to keep them in your environment, to hurt them and hold them back. And that's not okay with me either. So you got to free up, let it go, let the butterfly fly away.
I think there's so much to unpack there. I want to go back to one of the points that you made, that so many people are living other people's intention. And unless you focus in and narrow in on what you really want for your life, for yourself, you're going to continue to do that. So for you, when did you feel like, hey, this is my mission, this is my purpose? And when you go down and into all the things that you're currently doing, how do you know that you're on the right path? Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, my mission has evolved. It first started out like all people are unstoppable to living a life of their dreams. And it still revolves around that. But I started to realize as I got into this business, that one has become a place where your favorite podcast host trusts us to vet guests for them. Your favorite guest is a client of ours. We work with some of the top people in their space at That1. We work with billionaires. We work CEOs of billion-dollar companies like Adidas, Lovesac, Pathwater. Some of you have heard of Pathwater that comes in a metal bottle. You can refill it. They're clients of ours. The top people in biohacking, longevity, wellness, functional medicine, doctors and experts. They come to us, right? And I started to realize something. Wait a minute. I'm helping people go further faster on their mission. And so that's what the mission became, is like, how can I help people go further faster through connections, exposure, understanding how life works.
So, you've also co founded That1 Agency or Quantum Expansion to stretch leaders into their next level. What does quantum expansion mean and what does that look like in action?
Yeah, this came about. Look, I've tried a lot of things and failed at so many things that I thought it was the way it was supposed to work. I had the Waymo movement, which is What Are You Made Of? Is my podcast. Waymo movement had a group of people there, and I tried all kinds of different things, but I was forcing it, honestly. And when you force something, it doesn't feel good, and you start to resent having to go to the calls, the meetings, this and that, and then you realize you got to be able to give yourself permission to change your mind. And so I would change my mind and just stop something. And I didn't worry about what people think. Like, you ought to keep going with this. You ought to. No, I just changed my mind and move on. And I have Kim, who's our ops manager, and she was my executive assistant at the mortgage company when I was running the mortgage company. She understands how I work because she never questions if I want to change direction, shut something down. She just understands. And we just keep moving. We move at a pace that we don't have time to think about, like, oh man, what are people going to think if we shut this thing down? If we have to give people their money back and say, hey, this isn't working out. We want to just thank you for your time investment. We don't have time to think about that. So I had the podcast agency, over 200 active clients at any one time. I had this amazing network. And I say this humbly, I have to be one of the most connected people on the planet. It's wild because nobody's willing to do what I do. Those 15 minis, 5 to 8 a day, Monday through Friday, 7 to 10 podcasts a week, going to events and making sure I follow up with every single person I meet after the event. Nobody does that. There's nobody on the planet that does what I do to the level that I do it. And so I started building this amazing network, and I was thinking to myself, I don't have these people centralized in one place. And if I want to connect any of them, I got to do an individual connection, a onesie twosie. I started to open my mind up and think about multiples. How can I do things in multiples? That'll lead to exponential growth. And I said, if I could centralize, and I hate Facebook groups, by the way. So I was like, I'm not doing a Facebook group. I hate Facebook. So I said, you know what? I'm going to create, and I've been in several WhatsApp chats. I saw a lot of gaps in people's WhatsApp communities and things. And I said, I'm going to create a highly cultivated invite only WhatsApp group. I'm going to bring these people in and I'm going to set an intention for the group that we're here to serve others. And if we give enough to other people, we'll have everything we need. And we created That1 network first before the quantum. And I had this network up, 300 some people. We're networking it every day. We do meetups. We go to events. We'll say in there, hey, I'm going to Miami this week. Anybody in town? People would start flying in just to hang out. And people started saying to me, hey, we want to go deeper with you. We want access to your resources and your knowledge and experience, this and that. And I said, I'll create something. Because now I'm not forcing it. Because before I didn't have people ask me. I would just create something I think people would want. Now I was listening. And when you actively listen, people, the market, they'll tell you everything you need to know. But most people don't listen to that. And I started thinking, okay, if I did this, what do I want it to look like? And I've been studying quantum for a while now, neuroscience for a while now. I've gotten into all kinds of different things, down different rabbit holes. And it's really helped me. And I've seen how people have success and what's really behind it. And I said, man, how about That1 Quantum Expansion? And so that name stuck. I called my friend Jerry Malcolm, who I met on Clubhouse. I knew he was studying quantum. He was studying neuroscience. He has a different background to me. He came from the streets of LA and has a totally different perspective, but is studying the same thing. And I thought, man, this would be cool because I can hear from his experience and learn from his experience. He can learn from mine. And we can help people when they set a goal and are on a mission, not just chip away at it, which we all do. We try to chip away at it, and you got to do that, but also be open to quantum leaps. U Squared is a great book. If you haven't read it before, U Squared
I
talks about
have read
quantum
it.
leaps. Yeah, quantum leaps. And things happen in our lives, and a lot of times we and we take it for granted that we were helping cause that, right? So I started to realize, like, wait a minute. Anytime something happened that was like beyond my belief, like, wow, that I didn't even like feel like I worked for that. That's a quantum leap. Somebody comes in your life and provides you something and you're desperate need of. Money just shows up when you're in a despair. results happen and you're like, wow, I thought it would take longer. Quantum leaps are important, and it's important to be open to those. And so I wanted people to understand that and start working and developing people to expand via quantum leaps. And so we started this group. I didn't market it at all except in the WhatsApp network, that one network. And as soon as we launched it, we created a lot of buzz and anticipation for it. As soon as we launched it, we had 14 people sign up immediately. And it's quite an investment, but they signed up immediately. They wanted to be a part of it. And then we started having calls and just breakthroughs and amazing things. And Jerry and I together are very entertaining, by the way. So it's not like normal boring Zoom calls, or when we meet in person, it's not boring like most of the events I've been to are. And then I said, well, we got to meet up. So we created this event coming up here in October 24th, the weekend of October 24th. That's our first event. We secured a mansion out in LA, and we're bringing people in for something they've never experienced before. So Sam, you and I have been, I don't know if both of you have, but I know Sam has been to some of these events that I've been to, and we've witnessed and seen. Some of them are cool and all that, but I saw so many gaps. And I'm also
Huh.
not the type of person that can sit and listen to a speaker for 4 days in a row or 3 days in a row or even 1 day in a row. So I wanted to create an event that's not lined with speakers to impress people, but I wanted to create an event where we experience things together, get out of our comfort zone, and expand neural pathways that will extend beyond the event into their lives and relationships and business to create quantum leaps.
My God, that sounds so amazing. I can't wait to hear how the event goes and what that is like.
Well, you two should go. But by the way, the founding members, it's in their membership, the event's covered, but we're opening it up to that one network and people in my network as well to be able to take advantage of the event. So, yeah, you guys should be there.
Yeah, we would love to. We'll have to get all the details. I mean, October is going to be a rough month for us, but we'll see if we can make it work.
This is something worth canceling everything else for, just to let you know. Trust me.
I'm sure it is. Yeah. All right. Well, at this stage in your journey, what matters most to you, and how do you want others to remember the work that you do?
What matters most to me, I have a prayer I say every day, and that is, God, give me the thoughts to have, the words to speak, the actions to take, and the people to surround myself with to serve the mission you have for me and to glorify you. And that sets an intention, right? And that intention leads my what? Gives my what a direction? Attention. Remember, I told you that earlier. So I want to direct my attention with the intention that I set with that prayer and what that does for me. And this is the other question you asked before that I didn't answer. How do I with all the stuff going on and all that? How do you know which way to go and all this? Well, when you set an intention, it gives you a binary decision, either towards or away, building or destroying. There's not all the other distraction and multiple decisions you have to make and causing chaos and confusion. Because when you're in chaos and confusion, it's impossible to be successful in advance. So setting an intention based on that prayer gives me my thoughts, words, actions, and the people I keep around. Do they align with that to serve the mission God has for me and to glorify him? Or does it go against it? Does it hurt it, slow it down, whatever? That's it. It's either towards or away. One decision that I can make based on two options. And that clears things up. And clarity is very powerful.
Yeah, I agree. And so many people that we've interviewed on the podcast talk about plus one or minus one, but it's the same thing that you were just explaining. Is it building you up to your vision and what God's purpose is for you, or is it tearing you down? We definitely agree with that. To wrap this up, for anyone listening to this podcast and they know that they're meant for more, but they don't know where to start, what's the very first step that you would tell them to take?
Well, they should go to my Instagram, Mikey C-Roc, and they could check it out. I answer my DMs, but check out the content we're putting out. Check out the vibe, the level we play on. But I got to answer the other question because I did miss it, and I want to end it on this if you don't mind. It's a quick story. There was a question regarding how do I want to be remembered, right? And I don't care about me. Okay, I don't care about me. I had a friend pass away recently. Sam, you might know him. His name, Steve Sim. You may not know him. Okay, so he passed away from cancer. And I'm very observant, remember? So I'm watching how my thoughts and memories are of things. And weeks go by, 2 weeks go by. During those 2, 3 weeks, not thinking about him anymore. Right? Honestly, it didn't come. And then it would pop up 3 weeks down the road. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember him. He passed away. And when you die, people forget about you. Your closest people, they'll have a loss and they'll deal with grieving and all that, but then they move on with their lives. The thing about it is when you start to realize this, even the Queen of England, when she passed away, people stopped thinking about her. But what they don't think about, what they don't forget, and they may not remember it came from you, is how you impacted their lives. right? And if you impact somebody's life, it changes their trajectory. Again, they don't need to remember it came from you because that's self-serving, that's ego. But if you're doing a mission and you're changing people's lives, that's how you are remembered. It's like, hey, I changed. A person will say, I changed. I went to a different direction. I changed my identity and increased my probabilities of success in my life. Them having that memory of the fact that they changed is more important to me than anything. My name, my brand, who I am, what I've done, none of that matters except for that one part.
That gave me chills when you said that.
Yeah, that was
That was
powerful.
really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. And so to wrap this up, we want to go ahead and do a quick rapid fire. So no overthinking, just first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready? Podcasting or public speaking?
They're the same to me.
Okay.
Coffee or pre-workout?
Coffee.
Hustle mode or vacation mode?
Well, I don't know. If I had to pick one of those, I would say hustle mode, but I like to be in flow
Yeah,
regardless.
I hear that. Flow and alignment. Morning routine or late night grind?
Always mornings are better.
Mindset books or mentoring sessions?
I like books better.
Interesting. Well, this has been such an amazing episode. I know we can dive deeper into these topics. We'll definitely have to bring you back on the podcast. But for anyone listening to this, where can they find you?
Again, Instagram, Mikey C-Roc, go there. If you're interested in getting on podcasts, the top podcasts out there, the number one right afterwards, agency.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. This has been filled with so much value, and we're sending our listeners so much love and light.